Jeanette's place?
We have a temporary.
Peaches said that nobody applied for it.
We had,
We advertised?
we had like one, we've advertised, we put it in the paper, we put it in the feed, we put it out where our chamber, we've talked to everybody we've talked to. We're kind of revisiting the position and just talking about now, what we, because it was like, all right, that didn't work, so let's go back to the drawing board and talk again.
Something a little different, yeah.
Mhm. So, but we have a temporary, she can only stay probably if you're like late July, August, if she's moving, but she's really good for us. We're
Yeah,
there
she
2 weeks and she's getting all the stuff done. So, that buys us time. And I said, if we can get through the end of the year to change it, then, if we go a couple weeks, it won't be so bad. But right now, if you're spending, and then you got to account for it all, and then end of year report, that's the worst time. So we'll get through this, and then we'll figure the rest out.
We can do the
Town
town hall, but we can't do a public hearing.
And Ray will not be here, correct?
I
I thought he said that in the meeting, he wasn't gonna be able to make it either today or Thursday.
I think that's what he said as well.
Yeah.
I have not seen Joy today.
She's got a couple.
She's asked questions for us. Not before. Maybe it's like that. What did they get done on the work today? They just pump it out something.
Well, I got the sand filled in.
I didn't say, yeah, they pump it back, they fill it back up, so you can't tell what they did when you go down there at 6 o'clock. They got that, looks like they.
I've worked through one of his weekly list of things he's going to accomplish today. He's targeting at his first floor guard.
Quite a job, I didn't know why.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was sort of
I thought they just kind of tear it
come
down.
in and tear it out, frame it, or it, move on. Restrictions and requirements. Well, I still don't understand how you got from coming up to allow the service student. Obviously, they know. Exactly.
I guess it's knowledge. It probably still comes up as slow. I'm slow.
Yeah.
All right.
I put them in the charge. I thought it was something out of the wash.
Ready, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, ready.
No.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's a town hall meeting and also a public hearing. Two things going on. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Klosky,
Present.
Councilmember Bloxham,
Present.
Councilmember Moreno, Councilmember Berger, Councilmember Oswald, Councilmember Gillespie.
Present.
The majority of members are present, and we have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes to review or anything like that. We have basically two things on the agenda tonight. The first one is a public hearing which is a budget amendment to the 2022 budget. We're required to have a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing now and explain.
Sure, thanks.
Excuse me, Mr. Town Manager, I'm hearing from our program manager, she's trying to log on and wondered if you started the Zoom call.
Thank you. Hold
Thank
on
you.
for me 1 second. We've got two computers both doing the same things right now, and I think that one might be the. All right, yeah, that let two people in. Thank you so much. So we have a public hearing
Let's
tonight.
hold on a second about how are we going to handle Zoom? If people on Zoom, or there are two other ways that people are listening to this meeting, correct?
Yeah, we've got a conference phone,
Yeah.
and we also have Zoom. So once we get to the public hearing portion, I'll unmute folks.
Okay.
But these hybrid meetings are very complicated.
If you're out there, just wait and we will ask for comment from the virtual world. Okay, at the end of the time. So we'll let people speak here first. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, so we have a public hearing for a budget amendment for just the sewer portion of the budget. If you'll remember, we did the general fund and we did the water fund because we're going to be operating the water department after we have the HRSD transition. We were hoping to have the HRSD transfer completed by June 30th. We're not quite there yet, so we're going to have an amendment for the 2022 sewer department. This is exactly the same budget that council approved last year. There's absolutely no change in rates. There's no change in assumptions that we made. So basically what we're doing is continuing last year's budget until into 2022, until such a time that we transfer over to HRSD. At that point, we'll come forward with another amendment.
What time frame is that? You speak to the public, not me.
The time frame that we're looking at right now is we're going to have probably two amendments. The first amendment would be the sale of the plant, if that's the way that council decides to sign, and then the final would be when we transfer the collection system in its entirety. So the recommendation that we have is that we keep the current Onancock water and sewer rates in place until we transfer both the plant and the collection systems. That way, folks' bill don't jump around at all. There's no change in any kind of service or performance. And then once the entire transaction is complete, at that point, we'll go to new rates. I have created for the meeting tonight, and I've got it available, what the town rates currently are, what everybody's bill would look like, and then a post HRSD rate. And I have copies for everybody here. So that's what we're going forward with, is continuing the current year's sewer budget so that everybody's rates stay exactly the same, no changes. And then once we transition over to HRSD, the plant and the collection system, at that point, we would go to the post HRSD rates, which I have here, which we also reviewed during the budget cycle and the budget process. So there's nothing that has changed.
Public comment? Anybody here make a public comment about this budget amendment? Okay, any public comment on the anybody on Zoom? Public comment? Anybody? Feedback here.
Anybody.
Okay, any comments from council? It's a public hearing, we've already weighed in on this. I'm gonna close the public. Okay. I'll close the public hearing on it. There's nothing. There's nothing. We have to vote on it?
No, you're accepting the budget, adopting the budget on the 28th. Yeah, so you'll adopt the budget that you've already worked with, and then the amendment that you reviewed up till tonight.
Okay. All right.
So this is our current rates.
Yeah, and on the back,
Go back will be after the transfer.
Right, so I tried to highlight on the back where it says after full transfer.
This says at 50 cents DDH. What's that mean?
There's currently a Virginia Department of Health. That's not a change. It's 50 cents gets added to everybody's water bill currently, and obviously it'll continue.
So we'll go from 29.64 for the first 3,000 to 38.40 for the first 3,000. Am I correct?
Yes.
I'll file that away somewhere useful
Yeah.
for the next 6 months at least.
Yeah, and we've got copies for everybody.
All righty. All right, so we're gonna vote on the budget at the June meeting. If you have any questions about the budget, we'll talk about it. All right, okay, the second part of this, the main purpose of this meeting is the town hall to discuss well, what we're gonna do with the rescue funds that the town is gonna get. I guess the process on this is that we're gonna receive public comment tonight from anybody that's interested in commenting on, how we should spend this money. Matt is going to explain some of the rules in a second. After that, there's several different groups that the public is going to weigh in on how they think this money should be spent. Then the town staff has got some ideas. They're going to present to council later on about what, they've done some research on this. They're going to present how they think this money should be spent. And then the council will be the ultimate decider, and we will just, make a decision. We'll probably have a work session, probably in a month or so, to discuss this. It's pretty detailed. There's a lot of money at stake. I've been in council for 20 some years, and this is the first time I've ever seen this kind of money come in. It wasn't some kind of grant or anything like that. So this is a huge deal, and we need to take our time and do this correctly and not rush it and thoughtfully to use this money the best way we can. So without that, Matt is going to explain a little bit about the rules. They're fairly complicated, and he's going to break that down.
And at the same time, I'm going to try to make it as simple
Yeah.
as I possibly can.
Right, now, Lisa, could you bring that sign up sheet and everybody through so I can call for comments? Through.
So counties and incorporated towns receive a prorated portion of the Commonwealth's portion of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or ARPA, based on the population. The estimated distribution to Onancock is approximately $1.1 million. Onancock is what's called an NEU, or a non-entitlement unit, which is basically a category for very small municipalities like ours. After the state receives its portion, they're required to distribute the funds to NEUs within 30 days, but they may ask for an extension. They might ask for an extension because the small communities are required to certify a couple of different things, such as the top line of the budget. The distribution of this grant cannot exceed 75% of the published budget. We're well within that without a problem, but others have to certify, and we all have to provide those figures to the state. After communities certifies, the funds will be transferred in 2 equal payments or tranches, no more than 12 months apart. There are specific reporting requirements that Onancock will comply with regarding the use of these funds. The use of these funds must align with one of these 4 categories. Category A is public health and negative economic impact. And I'm going to put a summary together of each of these categories and how the funds might be used. So category A is to respond to the health emergency or negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or to aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Category B is premium pay to eligible workers. This would provide premium pay to eligible workers who perform in-person work, interact with others, and physically handle items handled by others. Examples might be sanitation. Category C is government services to the extent of revenue reduction. Now, revenue reduction is a fairly complicated formula that the Treasury put out. I got a calculator for it today, so I'll start working forward with that. but the amount of the category C that we're allowed to use is the greater of 4.1% or the growth rate based on that calculation. So for a very simple upfront, you want to think that 4.1% of our revenue would be the least amount that we would be able to use for revenue reduction. If our revenue growth has been more than that, then we would be able to recover more than that and allocate a portion of these funds in as category C. Category C can be used for items like maintenance of infrastructure, but the use of these funds has to be of immediate benefit to local residents. It can't be things like paying debt, putting money into pensions, increasing reserves, anything like that. It has to be used for the benefit of current residents and businesses. Category D is the investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. This includes stormwater project investments and also includes a wide variety of a range of investments that include planning, design, and construction. The term that we have to deal with is these funds have to be encumbered by December 31st of 2024, and they have to be expended completely by 2026. So we have a defined term, but we have a lot of time to make sure that we thoughtfully appropriate these monies in a strategic way for the town. So that's why, I've said from the very beginning, we have time, let's take our time, let's make sure we involve all the voices and make sure that the appropriation is solid. But then at that point, we have to consider the fact that every municipality is out there with these same projects. So getting contractors is going to be a challenge. So I want to make sure that we have the reality and the logistics at the same time that we've got strategy. So we're going to gather our proposals tonight from the public. At the same time, like the mayor said, the staff is compiling a list of what we believe would be an appropriate use, but town council is solely responsible to prioritize the appropriation of these funds. Once we certify to the state and we're transferring these funds, it's going to be going into a dedicated bank account. The bank account will only house ARPA funds, and we're going to account for it in a way that is going to allow for us to comply with all of the reporting requirements, as well as some of the audit requirements, because the size of this grant is what's called a single audit. So we are going to, in all likelihood, be audited for it, which is no problem. But that's why I want to keep it all separate, and I want to keep ourselves methodically going through everything that we have to go through. So with that, I am absolutely happy to start taking notes and listening to some really good ideas.
All right, I'm just going to go down on the sign-up sheet. I don't know if people signed up, they want to speak, but I want to know your name. So Myra Wiley Taylor. Please state your name and where you live. And what ideas you're representing. I'm not sure that even works.
I think if it's not, don't look, it's plugged in.
I can speak loud.
All right.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Myra Raleigh Taylor, born and raised in Onancock Bayside area. And I'm sure you all are familiar with that. It's one of our three freeways to the Parksley area. So I'm sure you've traveled through that residence. Member of Bayside, as I mentioned. Graduated from Onancock High School, was a cheerleader for our current governor during that time. So have links and ties to him as well. So I'm here tonight understanding that we are not a part of Onancock's town. However, we are one of probably 2 to 3 areas that are a part of Onancock. We were at one point RFD, Onancock's RFD. So we are, and we still consider ourselves a part of Onancock, even though it's not a part of Onancock's town. I know I have 3 minutes, so I'll try to stay within that 3-minute time frame. I did provide you with a briefing this evening. The very first slide of that briefing is our funding request. The backup slides that I have is just providing you with an overview of our organization. We formed an organization to revitalize the Bayside community in 2018, and we were incorporated in 2020. And we're currently working on our nonprofit status today. For our funding requests, we have been working with VDOT and we have multiple projects which are reflected in the backup slides and the briefing that you do have. We have multiple projects that we're working. We started our efforts based on the fact that we didn't have funding with many of the projects in which we were supported by the county. We were approved to work with Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission, and we are also engaged with the county's environmental area, which is supporting us on the ditch maintenance and cleanup. That is one of our current efforts that we have. We had VDOT to come last year and they did an assessment of our ditches. And so with that assessment, it was determined that we have probably about 12 culverts that need to be replaced. And so bottom line up front, our request to the town of Onancock is to support us in the effort to obtain the funding for those culverts as well as the installation. And we estimated it to be about $36,000 for the 12 that they have identified. We feel that this does align with the funding that you are receiving. It is a part of what we consider the category D area. So hopefully you will consider and we request that you fund the culverts for Onancock Bayside revitalization. If you desire, I can return with my team. I have my Vice President Liz Bell here with me this evening as well, and we can give you an overview and an in-depth briefing on what we're doing in that community, how we're supported. We have several partnerships with down in Exmoor with the New Road Community Development Group that's led by Ava Gabriel Wise, and we're also engaged with the Area on Aging, and we're actually receiving meals for our seniors on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is being led by Liz Bell as well. So we have an extensive list of projects that we're working, from ditch maintenance to installing lights to new infrastructure for water and sewer. So we'll be glad to provide you with more information on that. But that's our funding request to the town of Onancock, is to support us with the effort of having those culverts replaced. Subject to your questions, that's my presentation.
Does anybody have any questions, Council?
I think your presentation's extremely well done, and thank you for coming and explaining this to us.
Thank you.
I've traveled that road frequently, and I can concur, it's much needed.
Yes, thank you.
Have you applied to the county as well for this?
We are working with the county. They're working with us on some of our housing efforts, and we've also had the state to come in from housing department, and we did a tour of the Bayside area as well as the Town Road area. So we're also supporting Town Road. They're just getting started. We met with them last month, and they have their projects that they're starting to identify and maybe coming back before your council as well to request funding. But again, understanding that we're not a part of Onancock, but we feel that we are a part of Onancock because we are within the 23417 zip code.
But have you applied specifically to the county for their ARPA money?
We have not. No, we did not apply for them. They had their town hall last week, and we do work with Robert Crockett, who is our representative. So we did not present at the town hall last week. We were presenting here first, and then if this is not doable, then we will probably go back to the county to request support for that.
Myra, you're still a cheerleader.
Thank you.
I first became
I don't
aware
know
of
about all
this.
that.
I first became aware of this from the lady at the Onancock Buildings.
Okay, Shirlene.
Yes.
Yes, Shirlene is actually our secretary for this organization.
Yes.
So very active and engaged.
Good job.
Yes, thank
All right,
you.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Shelley?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Shelley Strain, representing the Eastern Shore Coalition Against Domestic Violence, or better known as ESCADIV to most of you. You're probably aware we serve survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in Accomack and Northampton counties. You're probably also aware that we have grown substantially in the last decade. From providing just over 4,000 bed nights of shelter to 94 individuals in 2010 to providing over 7,000 bed nights to almost 200 individuals currently. ESCADIV works in partnership with law enforcement to be a part of the county and the town's emergency response team. This has been achieved with very limited shelter space. Our current shelter, we have 8 beds in it. those beds, we have 8 beds in 2 sides, so we can hold 16 people, but there are 4 beds, bunk beds in a room. It is not ideal. It's very limited in how we can match people up. We don't want to mix children with other adults. And so even though we technically have 16 beds, that configuration usually only lends us to 12 shelter beds in good times. During the past year, with the spread of COVID-19, we've been sheltering each household separately, so families fleeing violence would not have the added fear of being exposed to COVID-19 in a congregate shelter. This increased our cost for overflow shelter space from our original budget of $35,000 to over $100,000 last year. It's not a sustainable cost. During this time, we also recognize that sheltering individuals and families in non-congregate settings provided a more trauma-informed approach and assisted clients in healing during their transition to permanent housing. Due to this need for additional shelter space, as well as the want to have all of Escative's offices, administration, and advocacy in one place, we began exploring options to either build on the property we own in Onancock or purchase and renovate an existing building to provide the shelter and office space we need. We hope to increase our current shelter capacity from the maximum of 16, and that's if everything's perfect, to up to 40. We've been housed in Onancock for over 30 years. We continue to be proud to call Onancock home and appreciate the support of the town residents or town manager, town board, employees, and law enforcement. With the hospital relocating to Owen, Onancock has an added benefit of being an ideal location to respond to emergency exams at the hospital. And additionally, Onancock provides a central location for providing services to survivors from both counties. Our preference is to remain in Onancock as we embark on the next step of our journey. The cost of our project, whether we build our own building or renovate a building, is expected to be over $1 million. We're asking the town to support this project with $100,000 to complement other sources of funds, including the county and private donors. As the only emergency shelter and 24/7 hotline on the Eastern Shore, your support of our capital project is critical to its success. Do we have any questions, anything I can answer tonight? Okay, we're definitely always here and willing to talk about, what's going on and how we can better support you, so let us know.
Thank you very much. Felicia Robinson. Hayden, Rochester.
I'm Hayden Rochester, live at 39 King Street in Onancock. Somebody just told me that what I'm going to ask about has already been taken care of. And I'm sure will inform me if that's true. For some years now, we've been watching the old shop building at the Onancock school collapse and become an ever-increasing hazard. We've had various attempts at funding to get rid of this thing. In any case, it's not a huge amount of money. My guess would be it's $15,000 or less to remove it. It makes it difficult to have children on the property for soccer and using the new playground, to know that there's something there that we have to constantly be watched, because it is definitely a healing place to go and hang out and get in trouble. So, and considering that amount of money and some of the other requests, I'm hoping that out of the million, whatever the town's got, that some way it can be configured to do something for that. And so I don't know, Matt, I understand we tried various funding schemes and they didn't quite work out. So I'm going to try again with this one. And thank you very much.
Thank you. The project here. Bell, I can't read the first name here.
I'm Elizabeth Bell. Yes, sorry, that name, right?
That's all right.
Mayor and council. I'm here on behalf of Onancock Bayside Revitalization Forum with our president, and she covered pretty much everything. But I live at 20458 Deep Creek Road in Onancock. And I just wanted to know whether this grant money is for the incorporated town or anyone who lives at a Onancock address.
I don't think we have, is there required?
I don't think that there's a restriction on which agency you support.
Right. As long as they benefit something. We could check into that more, but I'm not aware of anything. Yeah.
Okay, that was the only question that I had, but she covered everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
I said that's an important question.
Carol Tunstall?
Dennis going to give you a copy. Carol Tunstall and the 23 Meadville and Prospect on Onancock. Representing the Onancock Main Street. For the council members, mayor, for the opportunity to present to you this evening. We are happy to be able to weigh in on some of our suggestions for how this funding should be used. We do have one request for some of the grant money to be come to Onancock Main Street, and that's in the form of $12,000 to be used as a cash match for the community business launch grant, which we will apply for in 2022 to be completed in 2023. This grant is offered by the Department of Housing and Community Development. It is an entrepreneurial development strategy that focuses on filling vacant storefronts with expansion or startup ventures. The funds received from the grant will be used by OMS to develop a 6 to 8 week small business course of classes that include the following 4 business plan components: description of the business and the legal structure, marketing, operations, and financials. The training will be provided for entrepreneurs and small business owners who are interested in expanding their current business or opening a new business. The training then culminates in a group of finalists pitching their ideas to a panel of judges, kind of like a Shark Tank.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It sounds like Shark Tank.
Yeah, with the winners receiving the grant funding and support services to kick off their new venture. Also, I would say that in addition to the cash prizes that we will also be looking for in-kind support for them over a period of years. So it's really a great way to get new businesses started with a lot of support and how to run business and how to make sure that business is successful. And then we see a business after business after business in a location, we really like to say there. We will apply for $45,000 in funding to support this. And so the $12,000 from the Onancock ARPA fund will be leveraged to provide $57,000 in value to our local businesses. Through this work, we expect to help create at least 2 new or expanded businesses, employing an additional 5 full-time equivalent employees, fill 3 empty storefronts, make Onancock more attractive to visitors and residents, and provide additional tax revenue for the town. And Onancock Main Street will administer this grant. The one other really good thing about this, getting this grant and doing this work is we've developed the training program. We have it for future businesses as well, for anyone who's interested in going through something like that and getting supported. So it will serve us into the future. We also have some other suggestions for allocating funds, and these are to support our local businesses and to provide enhanced experiences for visitors. We would like to allocate funds up to $100,000 to create a matching grant funding program for business property owners to improve or refurbish the facades of their buildings. So this can include structural work, cosmetic, signage, awnings, but improvements to the front of the building, the facade of the building. This would include an application process for business property owners and possibly a one-to-one match from the fund. And then Main Street can also provide assistance with facade design resources that we receive from Virginia Main Street.
The town would do this, not Main Street, or $100,000 would,
We're not specifying who
okay.
would do it at this point. Yeah, so, I mean, if we wanted to do a partnership, then we could, kind of figure out how that would work. We would like for the town to allocate a minimum of $20,000 to improve wayfinding and signage in town and in the corridor approaching town. This will increase accessibility and visibility of amenities to visitors in order to boost tourism and better highlight places of interest, guide motorists to parking facilities and town facilities, and provide greater visibility to businesses at those, at some of the locations off of Market Street, so the historic Onancock School, for instance, and the businesses on King Street. We would like for the town to allocate funds to renovate the public restrooms and make them handicap accessible, safe, well-lit, and attractive. Research has shown that this is a major asset to towns regarding bringing tourists in, the tourist industry. And lastly, we would like to allocate funds to perform a townwide power washing for town and business buildings, properties, and sidewalks to provide a fresh look, boost morale, and signify a fresh start after the devastating effects of COVID. This may also serve as an incentive for business owners to begin facade improvements. So that's our request.
The matching $100,000 facade, is that if people, I guess you can possibly imply that people that because of COVID, they had to shut down, they didn't have money to do things that they would have probably done anyway. So that could be tied in somewhat, COVID related, because somebody might want to improve their facade last year and it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Right.
Or they didn't have enough money,
Right.
Yeah. So tie that in. And power washing, is there a cost estimate on that? That's, you don't have any idea.
We just, I guess it would depend if there are town employees who can do that or just.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I love the way the Onancock Main Street has a plan. And you take it step by step by step. So I think what you're asking for is, first of all, 12,000 for a cash match. But who's matching?
So the town would be, or the grant would be matching the community business launch grant. So community business launch grant, we can apply for $45,000 from that. But it requires a cash match grant.
Okay. Yeah. And then how much are the other items that you're asking for?
For
the bullet points down here.
Yeah.
So you're asking for 100,000?
Yeah, to allocate funds for,
The
100,000
restroom renovation.
up to some,
And the rest have been,
and 20,000 for wayfinding and signage. That would give us a good start. And the restrooms, we don't, we've had some.
There's another project that's going to include that, that's going to be coming to you.
So, okay, so we're.
right, thank you.
Yeah, we did have some, we did get some estimates on that, so we've been working with that.
We were in the $50,000 range.
All right, $20,000.
Yeah, sure, you're right. But that's another, that's. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Ken, something you.
No, I'm just here to learn what's, how the money's going to be distributed. Thank you.
Joni?
Thank you for your time, Mayor and council members. Just really going to reiterate what, excuse me, my name is Joni Donahoe and I live in Onancock and I'm the director at Historic Onancock School. And I will reiterate what our board member and concerned citizen Hayden Rochester mentioned about the shop building and the hazard it is to our property. I do believe it's going to be more than $15,000 and I want to make sure it's covered for all hazards and a real cleanup. We've already had kids who are very interested in it and some vandalizing. So I just really want to make sure it's very safe for everyone to come back and use our property now that we're attracting more kids with upgrades right now. As a citizen, I would like to applaud Main Street. Love their ideas, and as a nonprofit who's I have to walk outside of town, wayfinding would be fabulous. Cleaning up the sidewalks, just making them safer. There's some chip sidewalks on College Avenue that really need attention, just for safety for all of our tourists and for our residents who are walking dogs and pushing carriages. So that's just doubling up on what we think is going to be safe for the school and safe for the town. And I love everything that's been said so far. So.
Yes, thank you. Rick Turner? Okay, yeah, I just, Priscilla?
Well, I do have something to say. Good evening. My name's Priscilla Hart. I live in Onancock, 21 Market Street. I'm listening to all of the presentations, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. And I applaud every one of them. I'm looking at some of the categories of ways that the monies can be spent. And I would like to see a place provided by the town, funded by the town, for residents who have gone through this isolation of COVID-19, the pandemic. We've all heard and talked about mental health and how it's affected mental health of people. I think there should be a gathering place somewhere provided in the town for residents to go during certain hours of the work week and bring a book and read, bring whatever hobby it is they're working on, so that you can have camaraderie with other people. In this kind of isolation, I think it's been really hard. I think it hit a lot of people very hard. I think it's been depressing. People are thrilled to be out now, but on an ongoing basis, I think it would be nice for the town to have a physical location where people can go and spend time, find camaraderie with whomever is there. I don't know if it needs to be staffed. I hadn't thought that through, but if you want to put a dollar figure on it, maybe there's a location in this building. I think there is that we might be able to use. I'm just going to throw out a figure of $20,000 on an ongoing basis. Yes, you have electricity, you have other services that we need to provide, and some furnishing. So that's my thought, and I think it would benefit every resident here to have that option of a place that they could go to get out of the house, other than walk around in the street when it might be cold or too hot. Thank you. Thank you.
Philip, you're on, you want to speak or you just on?
No, I mean, that's not,
That's it. And Eric, and you just in attendance or you want to speak?
I'm just in attendance. Thank you very much.
All right, well, that's it. Anybody I missed that came in late and signed up? Okay. Sure. Anybody, actually, I have a letter here. Hold on a second. Let me read this. I've gotten one letter from Ruth Brillo. I would like to propose that Onancock use some of the available funds to repair the town sidewalks for improving the town appearance to support tourism, category A. Prevention of potential injuries to townspeople who are walking to improve their health, and remediation of neglected and or damaged infrastructure. These repairs are especially necessary on residential streets. Sincerely, Ruth Brillo, 101 Market Street. That's the only good correspondence we have came in. Is there anybody on Zoom or on the telephone who has a comment? Is there still a delay on the
There in Zoom, there's no delay.
what about streaming, is that delayed?
Yeah, there's a delay for the YouTube, but they can't interact with us.
They can call in though.
Yeah.
Anybody there?
Anybody on the phone? Anybody on the phone?
All right, well, any council comments? I guess we gotta schedule a work session. We'll probably, we'll do that at the June meeting. And it'll be
And
probably
if we
sometime
could
in July.
schedule it at that point.
Yeah, and it'll be in July, and we've got a lot of, things to think over. And honestly, we haven't, not that many proposals are there. I was expecting actually more people, really.
I have plenty for you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I know.
Don't you worry.
Yeah, but I was really hoping, hear from the public and see, just to hear some stories about people, some individual residents and stuff. And, I guess,
Have we received our funding?
No,
When do you expect to receive it?
the state hasn't given its timeline yet, so in all likelihood, the county received their funding beginning of last week, I think it was. So I think probably within 30 days of that, we'll be asked to certify. Within 30 days of that, we'll be receiving the money. I think probably 45 days, is a good guess. No rush.
all right, so we'll thank you all for coming, some great ideas, and we'll have a work session that's open to the public, although we probably, we don't normally take, prepared comments, but, if anybody has a question, we can certainly answer that. And at the work session, we don't vote on anything, that'll just be a work session, so it'll probably be sometime in July, I would think. All right.
Sounds good.
We have a motion to close. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor. Second,
I second.
all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.